If my son's fiancée introduces me to her boss as an unemployed has-been, her boss might just look at me, smile, and say to the bride, "You're fired." If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. If I mishandle tonight's dinner, I could lose my son to a woman who mistakes kindness for weakness. The host at Lakeside Terrace leads us past a wall of windows where Lake Washington smears dusk into silver. The place is all soft lighting and linen, the sort of room where the chairs sigh when you sit, where successful people try on bigger versions of themselves. My knees complain as I settle. I'm 68, give or take a stiff shoulder, and I dress for comfort more than combat. Navy blazer I've had for years, shoes I've resoled twice, a silk scarf my late husband liked because it didn't shout. Michael beams. His smile catches the amber glow like he's already won something. Beside him, Jennifer smooths her blazer as if performance reviews arrive in the reflection. She's 30-something with the easy confidence of a woman who thinks confidence is a plan. "Mrs. Reynolds?" she says before our waters land. "Michael tells me you're between opportunities right now." Between opportunities floats like expensive perfume, noticeable and unnecessary. "I'm retired," I say, unfolding my napkin, measuring my breath the way I learned to in boardrooms and hospitals. "Right, of course." Her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, I'm at Nexora Labs, leading AI solutions firm in the Northwest. Senior Manager of Corporate Development." She pauses for the phrase to pin. "Sounds impressive," I say. "How long?" 3 years. My division's up 40%. She leans back, waiting for admiration to arrive with the bread. I sip water and trace the grain in the table with a fingertip. "What field were you in, Mrs. Reynolds?" Jennifer asks. "Nothing special," I say. "Tech business." "Mom's being modest," Michael says, squeezing my forearm. He has his father's reflex for defending the people he loves. The waiter appears. Pen ready. Jennifer orders salmon with some truffled flourish. Michael gets the herb-roasted chicken, and I ask for the soup and sandwich combo. Tomato bisque if they have it. Jennifer's brows lift barely. "Mom, are you sure? This is celebratory," Michael whispers. "It's fine," I say. "Simple food sits well." "Of course," Jennifer says, dismissive wave included. "Everyone has different budgets. I totally understand." The word lands like a slap. Budgets. She understands my money, apparently based on soup. I examine my spoon the way a surgeon studies a scalpel, then set it down gently. Because the trick with anger at my age is to give it a chair and a glass of water, not the wheel. "So, Nexora," I say. "What kind of solutions?" "Cutting edge." She's off. "Machine learning for efficiency, predictive analytics, automated decision trees, the usual bouquet of corporate romance. We're revolutionizing how businesses operate." "Company been around long?" "About 30 years," she says. "But it really took off the last decade. Before that, probably just another garage startup. Now we're pulling serious revenue. I'm on track for promotion. VP of Development, maybe regional director after that." Michael smiles. Proud. Love is generous with its grading curve. 60 hours a week sometimes, Jennifer adds. "That's dedication," I say. And I mean it. There were years I slept on an office floor because the office was all I had. Success takes sacrifice, she says. My generation gets that. The business world moves fast. You have to adapt or get left behind. She gestures with her fork. People your age, no offense, get stuck in old patterns. The world's different now. Michael shifts in his seat. Jennifer means things have evolved since Mom's time, he says carefully. Right, I say. Evolution. Exactly, she says, missing the edge. Companies reward innovation and results. Old school thinking doesn't cut it. We need fresh perspectives, aggressive strategies. 40% growth doesn't happen by accident. I'm sure it doesn't, I say. She leans in, conspiratorial. Between us, some of the older employees are, well, Deadweight. Experience without adaptation is stagnation. The company would be better off replacing half the senior staff with hungry young talent. I file away the phrase the way you pocket a dropped business card. Dead weight. The older folks must have some value, I say mildly. Maybe. She shrugs. Experience is overrated if it can't keep up. She cuts her salmon with surgical care. Passion drives results. That's what separates winners from, well. She glances at my soup. The insult hangs like smoke. I set the spoon down with a tiny click. Settling can be a choice, I say. She misses it, lifts her water like a toast. I respect you trying to stay positive about your situation. Have you considered consulting? With your experience, there might be opportunities. Entry-level work, maybe. Nothing too demanding. The irony is thick enough to spread. That's very generous, I say. Giving back is important, she says. Those of us who've made it should lift others up. She mentions her 6-figure salary, as if she's named a comet. Building something meaningful, I repeat. Like Nexora itself? Well, sure, but the founders were lucky back then. Right place, right time. The real innovation is happening now. Lucky. 30 years of missed dinners and maxed-out credit cards reduced to a coin toss. I take a slow breath and remind myself what's at stake. Not my pride, but my relationship with Michael. Pride can be resolved. Sons can't. Starting over can be liberating, I say steadily. Gives you perspective on what matters. That's the spirit, she says. Fresh start, new goals. Just be realistic about limitations, though. My limitations, I say. It hangs there like a dare. What would those be? Age, she says with the kind of sympathy that feels like a pat on the head. Tech moves fast. Hard for older workers to keep up. Companies want people who can grow with them long term. You're looking at what? Maybe 5 to 10 years before full retirement. Firms invest in futures, not short-term situations. Michael reaches for my hand. Maybe we should talk about something else. But she's rolling. It's not enough to show up. You need vision. The ability to disrupt paradigms. Disrupt paradigms, I echo. My bisque is surprisingly good. Exactly. The old guard thinks tenure equals wisdom. But markets evolve. Customer needs change. Sometimes you have to tear down old systems to build something better. I place my napkin on the table with deliberate calm. Quiet can be louder than a shout. I stand. Excuse me. I need some air. Mom. Michael's concern cuts through the fog of my temper. Just tired, I say, sliding 2 20s beneath my plate. This should cover my share. You don't have to do that, Jennifer says. I insist. Thank you for dinner, I add, and with a nod to the young woman who just offered me an entry-level job at a place I helped pull out of a garage, I walk out into the lake wind. The water smears the city lights into 1,000 tiny promises. It's a 45-minute drive to my place up in Queen Anne when traffic behaves. Tonight it behaves. The road gives me time to turn anger into something colder and more useful. Purpose. My house is modest on purpose. I like a porch I can sweep in 10 minutes, and a garden that fits between my knees. And patience. I unlock the door, flick on the study lamp, and let the room tell the truth the restaurant didn't earn. The walls hold photographs in frames that don't invite small talk. The incorporation papers for a company called Nexora Labs, signed by a younger version of me and a woman, with a grin that looks like mischief, and courage had a child. Product launch photos, patent awards, a magazine article that called me something I never said out loud, and a picture of 2 women in a 1-car garage, pointing at a whiteboard like it owed them rent. I sit, fingers on leather that knows my weight, and pick up the garage photo. We look 29 and convinced. We logged 18-hour days for years while people with better cars called us lucky. I call Maggie. She answers on the 2nd ring. She always has. Barb, she says. Only she calls me that. How was dinner with the future daughter-in-law? Enlightening, I say. I swivel the chair, watch my reflection go soft in the window. How are things at the company? Same as always when you're not around. Chaos with good intentions. She laughs, warm as fresh coffee. Seriously, we're fine. You sure you want to keep pretending retirement agrees with you? Still enjoying the break? I say. Enjoy it while you can. She says. There's a woman in corporate development making noise. Ambitious. Jennifer Parker, I think. Senior manager. Good numbers. Talks a lot about modernizing, disrupting old paradigms. Yesterday, she suggested we might be carrying too much senior dead weight. The words slot in like they were cut to fit. My reflection in the window lifts an eyebrow I didn't order. Interesting perspective, I say. Yeah. Can't decide if it's admirable ambition or dangerous arrogance. Maggie says. Board likes her. Me? I prefer people who remember why we started. I remember, I say. Exactly why I'm staying away a little longer. We hang up, and I pull up Nexora's financials on my laptop. 30 years of growth baked into columns. Annual revenue pushing $200 million. 800 employees across 4 states. A pile of patents that wouldn't exist if 2 stubborn women hadn't maxed a 3rd credit card. Lucky. The tomato bisque settles warm in my chest. Warm is not the same as soft. I smile for the first time all evening. Jennifer wants to tear down old systems and replace dead weight. She wants to modernize. Perfect. I can give her modernization, a demonstration in front of an audience she cares about, of how quickly the world can change. My phone buzzes. A text from Michael lands like a pebble on a quiet pond. Rehearsal dinner next month at the Fairmont Olympic. 6 p.m. Jennifer's excited to introduce you to her boss. Still time to change your mind about this, Mom. The woman is going to bring her boss to the wedding. She thinks I need coaching on how to stand near an executive without embarrassing her. She thinks presentation is character, and character is a suit that fits. I put the phone down and pull a legal pad from the drawer. Old habits. Ink steadies thought. I write headings in a blocky hand and the years haven't managed to pretty up. Assumptions, evidence, opportunities. Then I list, slowly, carefully, like I'm laying out parts before reassembling something delicate. Budget judgments based on soup, between opportunities. Dead weight, entry level as charity, limitations, age luck versus labor, disrupt paradigms. Replace senior staff, I draw a box around the last 2, and a star beside the second. She's a pattern, not a moment. Patterns don't change because you scold them. They change because reality interrupts. The old me, the one with too much hair and too little patience, would have crushed her tonight. 1 phone call, 1 email, and she'd wake up unemployed with a hangover of confusion. But I am not 29. I am a widow with a son who loves this woman. The point isn't revenge. The point is truth with enough daylight on it that everyone can see. The reversal clicks into place. Maggie will be at the wedding. Jennifer will be eager to show her boss a woman who knows how to climb. I'll be the unremarkable mother of the groom in a quiet suit. Maggie will see the cufflinks when they catch the light. She'll follow the glint to my face like a moth to an old habit. Jennifer will introduce me as an unemployed retiree from Queen Anne, and then the room will learn something about luck. I lean back and look at the ceiling until my eyes stop trying to water. I miss my husband most in moments like this, when a laugh would have pried open the tightness in my chest. He would have said, "Be kind, Barbara." But not soft. He was good at the difference. The kettle goes on. Simple sacred things are rails to run on. Boil water. Rinse mug. Listen for the whisper of steam. The night settles heavy and good. Then, pragmatic chores. I pull an old garment bag from the closet and zip it open. My best suit is 10 years old. Timeless cut, still serviceable. It will do for now. But for the real evening, I want something that says dignity without running its mouth. Not flash. Quality you feel in the seams. I make a note. Visit Emerson & White, tailoring a couple weeks before the wedding. Another note. Small insignia cufflinks. The sort of thing only one person in the room will recognize. And a gift worthy of my son's future. Generous enough to silence any talk of budgets. I take my tea back to the chair, the steam fogging my glasses. I take them off and let the room blur until all that's left is the feeling of it. The work. The years. The quiet trophies that don't require a spotlight. When the timer in my head says midnight, I rise, shut off the lamp, and walk the familiar hallway with paint I rolled myself last summer. This house has heard my best ideas and my worst arguments. It knows I'm not lucky. It knows I'm stubborn. And sometimes stubborn is what love looks like from the outside. In the bedroom, I set my phone on the nightstand and the legal pad beside it. So the first thing I see in the morning is the plan, and the second thing I see is the reason. Michael's smile at 12 when we built a treehouse with nails that bent and boards that didn't quite meet. Michael at 16 crying on the front steps because someone said a cruel thing, and I taught him how to look at cruelty like weather. Sometimes it rains and you don't blame the sky. You go inside and wait it out. Michael at 27, holding up a ring and asking if I liked her. I said yes, because he did. The truth was, I didn't know her yet. All of this, every legal pad line and cufflink and measured breath, is for him. I'm not interested in humiliating a young woman. I'm interested in giving my son the gift my husband gave me. Clarity wrapped in love. I slide under the covers and listen to the house breathe. Tomorrow I'll call the tailor, but tonight I practice the only thing that matters. Saying little, watching closely and choosing the long road. I've walked it before. It leads to solid ground. The morning after the lakefront dinner, I wake before the sun figures out what kind of day it wants to be. Habit, not virtue. I sweep the porch, water the tomatoes, and pull 3 weeds that mistake my patience for permission. Work is just attention applied a little at a time. There's a text from Michael waiting by the coffee maker. Jennifer wants to swing by. She thinks it'd be good to talk. A beat later. Please be kind, Mom. Kind isn't the same as quiet. I reply, I'll be here. At 10, a polished sedan glides to the curb with the discretion of money that isn't old enough to be embarrassed yet. Jennifer steps out in a trim suit that looks like it knows where it's going. She carries a box of printed invitations and a smile tuned to the frequency of persuasion. Mrs. Reynolds, she says, shaking my hand like she's calibrating equipment. Do you have a minute? I have 10, I say. Come in. She scans the living room as if it's a resume. I've taken certain things off the walls. Photographs with names that might hurry the story. What's left is the clean honesty of wood, books, and a rug my husband picked because it felt good under bare feet. We've got the rehearsal dinner set, she says, opening the box on the coffee table. She hands me a card the color of old cream. Elegant script, understated. Looks nice, I say. She nods, then clears her throat with purpose. I wanted to go over a few things so we're all on the same page. I'll have some important people there. My direct boss, maybe her boss. It's a big deal for me. Congratulations, I say. Thanks. She sits forward, elbows on knees. It's a familiar posture. A young woman about to teach an older woman how to tie shoes. I know you're used to doing things your way, Mrs. Reynolds, and I respect that. But this is a corporate environment. Optics matter, do they? I say. They do, she says, missing my tone and sailing on. So a few pointers. Dress, dark suit, modern cut if you can swing it. Nothing flashy, no dated scarves. Shoes with a little shine. Hairstyled and maybe skip the brooch. Those can read vintage. I'll take it under advisement, I say. Great. She exhales, relieved to have given the first lecture without resistance. Introductions. When you meet executives, say your full name and keep it short. Handshake. 2 pumps. Firm but not bone-crushing. Don't lead with your resume or, no offense, stories from back in the day. They hear that stuff all the time. Just be present, supportive of Michael, and, avoid controversial topics. What counts as controversial? Union talk, regulation debates, old-school management philosophies. Things from before the market got sophisticated. She smiles the way a lifeguard smiles at someone in the shallow end. Also, try not to undercut me. Sometimes older relatives make jokes that land wrong. Older relatives. I repeat, because the phrase wants to be heard twice. Right, she says. I'm just trying to set us up to succeed. Us, I say. She shifts, taking my agreement for granted. Also the rehearsal dinner receiving line. It's small talk central. If someone asks what you do, maybe say you're retired and leave it there. No need to get into, trying things that didn't pan out. I pour coffee into 2 mugs and hand her one. She adds sugar with the delicate care of a chemist. I take mine black, the way I learned to when printers jammed at 2 in the morning, and the only thing between us and a missed deadline was a cheap drip machine and a stubborn streak. Anything else? I ask. She brightens. Yes, my boss's boss. She's old-school leadership, but she appreciates polish. You'll want to call her Ms. Chen until she says otherwise. She likes decisive people who know their lane. And if you get a chance to compliment the company, mention how forward-thinking we are. Use words like agile and innovative. People eat that up. Do they? I say again. It shows you get it, she says. Modern business. I set my mug down. You want me to help you impress your boss? She pauses, alarm flickering, then in a softer tone that almost finds humility. I want this to go well for Michael. For us. I know I came on strong at dinner. I was excited. Sometimes I talk too much. Sometimes, I say. She swallows. Look, I'll admit I misread a few things. But I'm a fast learner. That's why I'm good at what I do. I adapt. Adaptation is useful, I say. So is respect. Agreed, she says quickly, as if the word can outrun its obligations. About respect, she says. I bought this for the big day. She pulls a slim box from her jacket and opens it. A silk scarf in a careful shade of blue that will photograph well. Thought it might suit you better than, My old one? I supply. She smiles, relieved I did the work of the insult for her. Exactly. I take the scarf. It's fine. Breathable fabric, modern width, the sort of thing you buy when you don't trust your taste yet. Thank you, I say. I'll try it on. We settle into the small pauses that tell the truth. She's not a villain. She's a young woman who thinks money is a mirror, and everyone's reflection should match hers. It's different from malice. It's closer to fear. She sets her cup down. One more thing. We'll have name cards at dinner. If you find yourself next to Ms. Chen, leadership, please let me take the lead. I've been building rapport for months. A stray comment can derail momentum. Momentum, I say. That's important. Very, she says. She stands, smoothing her jacket, confidence repotted and watered. We good? We're good, I say. Great. She looks around again, eyes snagging on a framed photo on a side table. 2 women in a garage pointing at a whiteboard like it owed them rent. I'd moved it out here to keep it from being a temptation. It still is. She picks it up. That you? Once, I say. Huh, she says, and sets it down without asking the story, because the past is only interesting when it flatters the present. See you soon. When the door closes, the house expands by the width of my patience. I carry the scarf to the bedroom and lay it across the suit I intend to replace. Then I return to the living room and stand in front of the garage photo, like it's a window. The faces are younger than my memory, and more certain than my wisdom. I was good at building things. I'm trying to be better at not tearing them down. The afternoon drifts by on errands that add up to quiet dignity. I polish my old shoes. I take the suit to the dry cleaner. I stop by a small jeweler with a note about cufflinks, and a design only one other person in the room will recognize. The clerk nods like I've asked for a family recipe, and promises to have them ready before the rehearsal. When I get home, Michael's car is already in the drive. He lets himself in with the familiarity of a son who once believed houses and mothers were the same thing. We hug, and his shoulders tell me about the day before his mouth does. "She came by?" he asks. "She did." He searches my face like a map. "And?" I drank my coffee. "She drank hers," I say. "We agreed on suit color and basic manners. She offered a scarf. I accepted. Mom." Her sigh's a whole language. I gesture to the couch. We sit. Light slants through the blinds and lays a ladder across the rug. We climb it with our eyes, buying time. "She's trying," he says. "She really is. She doesn't always hear herself." "I heard her," I say. "I know you did." He twists his ring finger, then stills his hand, catching himself. "And I heard you go very quiet last night. Quiet is scarier than loud with you." I smile. "Loud wastes energy." "And quiet spends it," he says, which is exactly what his father used to say when I came home from a board meeting with decision-shaped bruises. "Are you planning something?" "Yes," I say, because honesty is a kind of respect, too. Her eyes flick to the hallway that leads to my study, where the company's birth certificate hangs in legal font. Does she know? She knows as much as she's shown herself ready to understand, I say. "Which is?" "That I'm your mother," I say, "and that I don't need coaching to stand up straight." He leans back, relief and worry having a tug-of-war behind his eyes. "I didn't tell her because it should come from you. But if you were going to—" "I'm not," I say. "You're not." He repeats, testing the word. "I'm going to put quiet facts in front of loud assumptions," I say. "Then I'm going to let her choose who she wants to be." He nods slowly. "Ground rules?" "Yes," I say. "For both of us." We treat ground rules like we treated bedtime stories when he was small. Recited, familiar and binding, I start. 1, I don't humiliate. Not in public, not in private. Truth is enough. Agreed. He says. 2, if she disrespects you, really disrespects you, we pause everything until she understands what that costs. His jaw sets. Agreed. 3, I don't meddle in your relationship. I won't be the third person in your arguments. If you ask for advice, I'll give it once. Then I'll shut up. He smiles at that, half amused, half skeptical. Agreed. 4, at the rehearsal, I will be what I am. Your mother? I will shake hands and say my name. If someone asks more, I will answer without embroidery. If no one asks, I won't volunteer. Even then, I say. She says she adapts. Let's give her a chance to adapt to reality. He studies me. And if she doesn't, then adaptation will happen to her, I say. And we let the line sit there until it loses its heat. He takes my hand and squeezes. I love you. I know, I say. That's why I'm trying to be careful. We talk about flowers and seating charts and music that won't make him cry until it does. We laugh the way people laugh when the room is safe. When he leaves, evening has painted itself over the neighborhood. I stand on the porch and watch the last light fall between the trees. Somewhere a dog makes its case to the moon. The next week is a rehearsal for Patience. Jennifer sends texts with logistics and reminders written in the tone of a manager who believes systems can love you back if you love them first. I reply with the efficiency of a woman who signed too many contracts to confuse volume with clarity. She swings by once more, this time with a stack of place cards and another lesson. Don't sit next to my boss at dinner. She needs to work the room. She's not wrong, just graceless. We practice a mother-son dance in the living room. No music, just my counting quietly, and Michael's laughter when I predictably miss a beat at the same corner of the rug. You'll get it, he says. I'll get close. I say. The day before the rehearsal, I go to Emerson & White tailoring. The tailor measures with the no-nonsense tenderness of a woman who has seen every kind of body and knows dignity isn't in the inches, but in the way a seam meets a shoulder. We choose a fabric that doesn't announce itself and a cut that remembers how a woman stands when she is not trying to be 25. I ask her to rush it. She treats the request like a puzzle she enjoys. Back home, the cufflinks are waiting in a small velvet box. The insignia is tiny. 2 initials nested in a shape that used to fit on the corner of a 1-page business plan. If you don't know it, it's decoration. If you do, it's a door. That evening Jennifer calls. "Quick thing," she says. "Can you come a little early tomorrow? I want to run over the receiving line order. Also, quick practice on greetings." "I can be early," I say. "Great," she says, then softens her voice into what she thinks is generosity. "And Mrs. Reynolds, thanks for being flexible. This will help me a lot." "Flexibility is a survival trait," I say. "Totally," she says. "You get it." After we hang up, I stand in the hallway and look at the framed incorporation papers. The glass throws back a tired woman with decent posture and a face that has learned to count before it speaks. I think about what we built, about the people who work there now, about the young ones who will call the old ones dead weight, without noticing that someone kept the lights on long enough for them to argue about the bulbs. I take the papers off the wall and carry them into the study. I slide them into a drawer, not out of shame, out of respect for the plan. Tomorrow I won't need walls to speak. Tomorrow I'll let small things, good shoes, a quiet suit, the glint of a cufflink, do their small, sufficient work. Then I'll watch. Kind, not soft. Quiet, not absent. The mask isn't deceit. It's a courtesy. It gives the other person a chance to show you whether they deserve the face underneath. I set the alarm, lay the new scarf across the chair, and put the cufflink box in the breast pocket so I don't forget. Before I turn out the light, I text Michael. "I'll be early. I'll be kind. I love you, 3 dots. Then, I know. See you tomorrow, Mom." I sleep the way a woman sleeps on the night before a long drive, resting one hand on the keys. Engine off. Destination already chosen. Morning arrives with the straight-backed posture of a deadline. I eat toast standing up because sitting makes it feel like reflection. And today is for decisions that get ink on your fingers. First stop is Emerson and White. The tailor meets me at the door with a tape around her neck, and that small, proud smile women wear when the work in their hands is honest. The suit is ready. Charcoal that isn't quite charcoal. Fabric that changes its mind between slate and smoke depending on the light. She helps me into the jacket, tugs a sleeve, smooths the line from shoulder to cuff. "Stand like yourself," she says. I do. And in the mirror, a woman nods back who looks like she remembers how to carry a room without raising her voice. I slip the new scarf on, Jennifer's gift, and it behaves better under this cloth. Kindness where it fits. At the counter, the tailor unwraps a small parcel. "Your request," she says. Inside, the cufflinks blink, oval faces, a brushed finish, and in the corner, barely there unless you already know to look, the insignia Maggie and I once sketched in the corner of a business plan because neither of us could draw a straight line without a ruler. Our initials nested the way a good partnership nests responsibilities. The links are the size of a quiet memory, and that's the point. If you're not in the memory, they're decorative. If you are, they're a flair. I thank her, and she nods like we've conspired in something decent. On the way out, I catch myself smiling, not at the vanity of it, at the precision. I drive to Pacific Northwest Trust and hand my name to a receptionist who has the politeness of a locked drawer. The banker I've worked with for 20 years appears. Same calm demeanor, same habit of listening, until people run out of the things they say to impress themselves. We sit in a glass-in room with a view of trees that remember the city when it was shorter. He opens a folder already, labeled with my son's name. You sure about this? He asks. I am. He slides papers forward. We talk structure. A gift with boundaries that don't feel like bars. An account in Michael's name that no spouse can touch without his say-so. Not a test, not a trap, just ballast. If a storm comes, I want his boat to float. There are cleaner ways to control outcomes, he says, meaning there are ways to make it impossible for Jennifer to fail or to flee. I shake my head. I'm not here to control outcomes, I say. I'm here to make sure my son has choices, he nods. Then this is the clean way. We sign where the colored flags tell us to sign. He prints a card with sums that would make my younger self whistle, and my older self feel only relief that nights on an office floor turned into something a mother can hand her son without apology. I will give it to him privately after the rehearsal dinner, with a letter I've been drafting in my head since he was born. Back in the car, the numbers sit in my pocket with the weight of a promise. I feel lighter, not heavier. The decision isn't about Jennifer anymore. It's about Michael. That's the reversal. I still intend to interrupt the story she's telling about luck and dead weight. The cufflinks will do their small work. But the heart of the evening will be a gift, not a verdict. I spend the next hour buying things that look like errands and are really scaffolding. A new belt. A pocket square that matches nothing, because I intend to fold it like it means something anyway. A decent pen that won't run on cardstock. Then I go home and make the pen earn its keep. The letter is long by my standards and short by his. I write in my square print and stop myself from crossing anything out. I tell him what his father told me. That love isn't an investment vehicle and a marriage isn't a merger. That people don't change because you attach conditions to them. They change because life shows them a mirror and they decide they don't like the frame. I tell him that I've made a gift and put it where it will be safer than judgment, and that if he never needs it, I will die happier than a woman has a right to. I tell him I believe in his eyes when they are clear and in his laugh when he forgets to look at himself laughing. I sign my name with the steadiness the banker once praised me for, and fold the paper carefully, the way a person folds a flag. A text from Maggie arrives as if conjured by the ink. You going to this rehearsal thing or making me hold court alone? I'll be there, I reply. Early and polite, she writes, because she knows the version of me who used to think the fastest way to a point was through someone else's pride. Polite, I say with punctuation. She sends a thumbs up and the sort of crude joke you can only text to someone who knows the worst. Month of your life and sat on the porch anyway. Sit with her message a moment longer than the joke deserves, because gratitude is a discipline. Afternoon thins. I shower, treat myself like a machine I will rely on later. The suit goes on with the ease of a decision already made. The scarf Jennifer chose knots handsomely. It's better when it isn't trying to do all the talking. Shoes polished to a suggestion of shine. The cufflinks last. The insignia pair spun into place with the small twist that locks them. I watch my hands as I do it. They're not as steady as they were. They're steadier than some. I stand in the hallway and put the letter into my inside pocket. The bank's envelope goes in the same place behind it. The second cufflinks, the engraved ones, drop into the other pocket with a soft, reassuring weight. I look at the blank space on the wall where the papers used to hang and feel no ache. Only clarity. Walls don't have to talk. People do. On my way out, I pass the garage photo on the side table. 2 women pointing at a whiteboard like it owes them rent. I tap the frame with one finger. Behave, I tell the younger of us, and lock the door. The Fairmont Olympic is one of those places that pretends time doesn't happen. Carpets that muffle, walls that have heard more toasts than truths. I arrive a quarter hour early because that's the polite way to be on time. In the lobby, I spot Jennifer before she spots me. She's unmistakable in her element. clipboard posture, the brisk gait of a woman who believes urgency is a virtue. She's checking place cards against a chart and giving directions that are mostly correct. When she turns and sees me, relief flares. "Mrs. Reynolds, you look—" She stops, searches for a word that isn't a concession, settles on one that tries to be neutral. "Sharp. Thank you," I say. She glances at my wrists without meaning to. The cufflinks don't announce themselves, but her eyes aren't tuned for small frequencies. She doesn't see them. Good. "Let me walk you through the order," she says, and proceeds to do exactly that. It's competent work. She has thought about flows, about timing, about where people's eyes will be. She lays out the receiving line and demonstrates a handshake on me. Uninvited. Then blushes and apologizes. I give her the apology for free. A few early guests drift in. Jennifer corrals a hotel manager over centerpiece height. She calls me over once to ask if I think Michael would prefer lilies or roses at the head table. I say lilies, and she nods like she was leaning that way anyway. Her voice softens when she says his name. I file that in the column labeled "Evidence in her favor," because fairness is a practice too. "Jennifer," I say when there's a pocket of quiet. "Yes?" "A small thing." "Sure," she says, checking her watch. "You care about how you look in front of your boss?" I say. "I do," she says with an honesty I prefer to spin. "Remember that how you make other people look is part of it," I say. "Executives watch for that." She blinks, as if I've toggled a switch she didn't know she had. "Right," she says slowly. "Right." She's about to ask a follow-up when the doors at the far end open, and the first wave arrives. Bridesmaids with complicated hairstyles, groomsmen who will need instruction not to keep their hands in their pockets, an aunt with a hug you brace for, and then Maggie, broad-shouldered in a suit that fits like she has never settled for almost, walking with the ease of a woman who likes the ground she walks on. We make eye contact across the room. She starts smiling before she gets to me. "Barb," she says, and then politely for the room. "Barbara?" "Maggie," I say. We step in, our hands shake. The kind that shares a joke the world doesn't need to hear. Her gaze drops, almost by accident, to the small gleam at my wrist. The insignia winks. Maggie's eyebrows climb. An emotion so quick. Only 30 years of partnership could have trained me to catch it. She thumbs the link like a woman checking a coin for authenticity. "Nice cufflinks," she says. "Gentle as a stone. Old thing," I say. She looks up from my wrist to my face, and then across to where Jennifer is fielding a question from a hotel staffer with the over-eager nod of a woman auditioning for a promotion. Maggie's mouth tugs at one corner. She's quick. She knows my plan and its narrowness. Her eyes ask a question. "Mercy?" I give her the smallest nod a woman can give, and still mean it. Rehearsal mechanics begin. "Stand here. Walk there. Don't run. Don't try to be funny with the vows." I take my place. Move when told. Keep my shoulders out of the way of photographs. Jennifer circulates. A tugboat nudging larger ships. She's good at this bit. She keeps the worst chaos from blooming. When the receiving line practice winds down, she gathers a few people near the front. The boss has arrived, it seems, and the boss's boss after her. They approach like minor planets, each with a gravitational field measured in how quickly. Others adjust their orbits. Jennifer's face lights with the force of her desire to be recognized. She beckons me. "Mrs. Reynolds," she says with pitch-perfect mixture of filial and professional. "I want you to meet Rebecca Hartman." The woman's shake is dry and brief. She has the careful posture of a person who has been the most important person in the room more times than is healthy. She turns to the older woman beside, her with the reflex of hierarchy. And this is Ms. Chen. Maggie and I have already shaken. Jennifer's. Brain stutters but doesn't crash. She recovers with a smile. "You've met," she says brightly, as if she personally engineered it. "We go back," Maggie says, eyes still on my wrist. Jennifer clears her throat, moving to steer. "Mrs. Reynolds is Michael's mother. She's retired now from business. Great woman." "Retirement can be strategic," Rebecca says, generous without being interested. "It can," I say. Maggie's gaze remains where the light glances off the small oval. She's letting it be my moment to choose. "That's friendship, too." "Barbara," she says. "Those are familiar." "From a garage," I say. "From a long time ago," Jennifer laughs. "Ms. Chen loves stories from the early days. She says it keeps her humble. Sometimes," Maggie says, and lets the word do a lap around the group. I move my wrist just enough to send one more blink of insignia into the space between us. Rebecca follows the motion, not understanding what she's seeing, only that something is happening beneath the surface of the interaction she thought she was managing. Her interest sharpens. "What is that?" she asks, polite curiosity shading toward the real thing. Maggie smiles. "It's the old mark," she says, "from before we had a brand manual." Rebecca looks from the cufflink to my face to Maggie's. You can watch smart women make the math. "It's one of life's quiet pleasures." "Ah," she says slowly. "Mrs. Reynolds." Jennifer's smile holds, but the edges pull. Her eyes ping between us. If you've ever heard a train slip on wet rails, you know the sound her mind is making without making any noise. "Michael's mother," I say, offering Rebecca my hand for the first time as if it's the only introduction that matters. She shakes it with a different pressure than before. Jennifer swallows. "Mrs. Reynolds is one of the reasons. I have a job," Maggie says lightly, "to save the woman and to set the table properly at the same time." I let the smallest silence settle so the facts can take their seats. Then I say, as if we're discussing the weather, "I'm very proud of what you've all built in the years since I left day to day." "Likewise," Rebecca says, now genuinely engaged. "We've been building on shoulders," Maggie adds. "Strong ones." Jennifer's face cycles through colors a woman doesn't intend to show in public. She catches herself, rearranges her features. She is learning in real time how quickly a room can change. "Shall we rehearse the toasts?" Someone calls. The blessed interruption. "Yes," Jennifer says, voice a notch lower. She looks at me, and in that look, there's something new. Room for recalculation that isn't pure fear. Ambition can learn. Maybe. We move to our places. I take out my phone and send Michael a quiet text before things begin. "I'm here. I'm kind. I love you, 3 dots. Then, I see you. I love you too." The cufflinks are cool against my wrist. The letter warms the inside pocket over my heart. The envelope sits behind it like ballast you can't see but can feel when the water gets rough. Everything is staged. I don't need to push. Gravity will do what it always does when truth enters a room. It will rearrange the furniture. Rehearsal slides into dinner the way a tide slides up a beach. Quiet. Then suddenly your shoes are wet. The ballroom's lights are warm. The clink of glass, steady. The chatter pitched to optimism. The head table is a runway of white linen and lilies. Jennifer is everywhere at once, adjusting a place card here, a centerpiece there, shaking hands with a precision that looks practiced, because it is. She keeps me close for the first circuit, the way a handler keeps a dog from sniffing the wrong shrubs. "Remember," she murmurs. Short answers. Gracious smile. "I've run a receiving line or 2, I say. She blinks, files it, moves on. Toast practice becomes toasts in truth. A bridesmaid tells a harmless story about Michael's middle school science project and manages not to cry until the end. A groomsman laughs too loud at his own joke and looks relieved when the room laughs with him anyway. Then Jennifer takes the mic, and the room stills the way rooms do for women who've been narrating their own ascent since they realized people were listening. To growth, she says, lifting her glass. In business and in love. The speech is polished. Gratitude for families. A nod to the hotel staff. A tasteful line about partnership. She's good at this part. But then she veers. We're all here because we believe in building. I've learned that to build anything worthwhile, you have to move fast, be decisive, and yes, sometimes clear out the old, to make room for the new. I've staked my career on that belief. It's never led me wrong. There it is. Never led me wrong. A small phrase with a big tail. I find Maggie in the audience. Her expression says, careful. Mine says, I know. After dessert, the room fractures into the pleasant little knots that form around coffee. I step onto the terrace to let the night rinse the edges off my temper. The lake breeze has been domesticated by distance, but it remembers how to be a wind. Footsteps behind me. Mrs. Reynolds, Jennifer says softly. She's alone. That's new. Did I hit the right tone? For most of it, I say. The end? She asks, already braced to defend it. You said you've never been led wrong. I say. That's not confidence. That's blindness. She laughs too quickly. You have to project certainty. People follow it. They also follow humility when it knows what it's doing, I say. Leaders misjudge. The good ones correct fast and in public. She lifts her chin. I don't misjudge people. I turn so the terrace light catches the insignia at my wrist, and then look her in the eye. You misjudged me over soup. She flinches. Recovers. Point taken. Second point, I say, because once you start offering a woman lifelines, you might as well tie knots in them. Don't pitch anything tomorrow. Her brows knot. Pitch what? The clear out the old initiative. Whatever version you've been rehearsing in your head, I say. Family Day isn't the place to demonstrate you can swing an axe. She tries to play innocent and stops when she sees my face isn't taking that game tonight. Honesty peeks through the suit. Rebecca and I have a one-on-one in the morning. 5 minutes between photos. I was going to float a plan. Small pilot. A couple senior redundancies. Symbolic. Symbolic. I repeat. To show momentum. To show vision. She says, not noticing how close the words often are. You don't know the stories attached to the names you'd cut, I say. Symbols are cheap until they cost someone else their rent, she bristles. We can't drag anchors forever. Look, Mrs. Reynolds, I get that your generation built foundations, respect, but the house has to change, or it collapses. Then learn the blueprint before you start swinging, I say, and don't use my son's wedding as your showroom. Her mouth tightens. Pride is a muscle. It contracts reflexively. I have to seize moments. That's how you move up. You don't move up by stepping on people who made the staircase, I say. You rise because they lift you. She looks away, then back. You think I'm arrogant? I think you're young and scared and hiding it with speed, I say. I also think you love my son. Both can be true. That slows her. She runs a hand over her scarf, the one she bought me, matching without meaning to. I do, she says. It's quiet. It's real. Then the rule is simple, I say. Make people bigger in his presence, not smaller. Start with yourself. She nods a fraction. I can do that. And Jennifer, I add because mercy without warning is just permission. Choose your words. Dead weight has a way of sticking to the speaker. She exhales. I hear you. The terrace door opens. Rebecca steps out with a cup and the unhurried gravity of a woman who never worries about being interrupted. She spots us, smiles. The polite smile of a leader joining a conversation she assumes she will improve. Good evening, ladies, she says. Jennifer flicks from contrition to performance, face brightening. Ms. Hartman, I was just telling Mrs. Reynolds about our agility initiatives. I'd love to get 5 minutes with you tomorrow, too. Walk me through it now. Rebecca says. Curious, not unkind. My high level? It's not the stage Jennifer rehearsed, but it's a stage. She takes it. In 2 minutes, she lays out a pilot that trims experienced heads to make way for hungry talent. She says redundancies like calling a person a spreadsheet. Sel makes it painless. She is competent, and she is wrong in a way that's hard to see from inside herself. Rebecca listens, head tilted, cup held like a metronome. You're decisive, she says at last. Decisive can be good. It can also be expensive. She glances at me as if I'm a third instrument in a duet, and she's checking whether we're in tune. Barbara? Jennifer's eyes flash. This was not the plan. Asking me in front of her is a soft test. Rebecca is watching whether her manager can handle disagreement without taking it personally. High level, I say, returning Rebecca's phrasing. If you don't know what a person knows, you can't know what you're throwing away. Rebecca nods as if she's been waiting for the sentence. And I don't like surprises, she says to Jennifer, mild as milk. Save this for after the wedding. Bring me data and names with histories attached. No metaphors. Yes, ma'am, Jennifer says, keeping her face steady. It costs her. She pays. Rebecca claps her shoulder once, friendly and final, and goes back inside. We stand with the hum of the room leaking through the glass. Jennifer's jaw works. Then she says, as if admitting it to the air rather than to me, that could have gone worse. It did go better, I say. She nods, a thoughtful, reluctant motion. Thanks for not... She stops. For not what? For not making a point of, you know. She says, flicking her eyes to my wrist at last, catching the insignia like a star you can only see if you don't look straight at it. I don't need to make points, I say. I need you to take care of Michael. I will, she says. Then, because habit is a long leash, I never miss... She hears herself and changes it mid-flight. I try not to misjudge. That's a start, I say. The door opens again, and now it's Michael. He steps onto the terrace, tracks our faces, reads the tension the way a violinist reads a room's temperature. Everything okay? He asks. We're rehearsed, I say. Jennifer reaches for his hand without looking at me, which is the right choice. We are, she says, and I got feedback I needed. He searches her, then squeezes her fingers. Good, he says, and the word carries both hope and a condition. Back inside, the room winds down. Hugs are scheduled and therefore faster. People promise to sleep and mean it. Maggie catches me at the exit. You gave her a chance, she says. I gave her a mirror, I say. Tomorrow she decides what to do with it. Maggie's eyes drop to the cufflinks one last time. You ready? I was born ready, and then life taught me not to say that out loud, I say. We laugh. It feels like a valve opening. On my way out, I detour through a quieter hallway and slip the envelope and the letter into a small hotel safe behind the front desk with my name on the claim slip. Silly maybe, but I want tomorrow's gifts to require intention, not impulse. I drive home with the windows cracked, the suit hanging like a promise in the seat behind me. The plan no longer feels like a trap. It feels like a path with exits. In the kitchen, I set my phone on the counter. A text from Jennifer arrives after midnight. Thank you for the terrace conversation. I'll hold the pitch. See you tomorrow. I reply. See you tomorrow. Kind, not soft. Quiet, not absent. The spark has landed. Now it's on the tinder to decide whether to warm or burn. Morning comes careful and bright, like a hand on a shoulder. I dress slow. The suit feels like a decision I can live with. The insignia cufflinks click home. The engraved pair go into my pocket with the letter and the bank envelope. Weight enough to keep a woman from drifting. I stop by the front desk, ask for the safe, retrieve the small bundle with a nod that says, "Today has jobs only I can do." Michael knocks on my door and doesn't wait. I'm not supposed to see you until the aisle, he says, already closing the distance. You're the groom, I say. The rules work for you. We stand there like any two people who've run out of words and found better ones. I hand him the slim envelope with his name in my stubborn print, and the smaller velvet box. Open the letter later, I say, when no one's watching. The other one is now, if you want. He lifts the lid. The simple ovals catch the window light. Inside, small letters read, "Be kind, not soft." His mouth does the thing it did when he was 5, and discovered a secret compartment in a desk drawer. I don't wear cufflinks, he says, laughing through it. They can be put on a chain, I say, or in a drawer. You'll know where they are. He looks at me like I've given him a spare key to a house he already lives in. Thank you. We breathe. There are hugs. There's a moment when his eyes get big and wet, and mine do the thing where they pretend to itch. Then his friends sweep him out in a fragrant, efficient breeze, and I'm left with one more job. Walk the aisle like a woman who understands what a gift is when she's holding one. The ceremony is a clean line of steps that never need to be rewritten. Music, vows, a promise said clear enough to carry even to the people who pretend not to believe in promises. I give his hand to her and look her in the eye. In her face is fear disguised as confidence and love disguised as ambition. I nod once. She nods back twice because she still thinks more is better. Photos. Sunlight in the courtyard. A shock of rice from an aunt who didn't get the memo about bird-safe weddings. The receiving line forms at the entrance to the ballroom, as old-fashioned as common sense. Jennifer positions us with a tactician's eye. Michael at the center, me on his right, her on his left, Maggie and Rebecca close enough to be satellites. People stream by. Names I know, names I don't. Hands, stories. The bright noise of 1,000 tiny reunions. It happens on handshakes 7 through 11, in the space where repetition makes you honest. A silver-haired man I don't recognize takes my hand in both of his and says, "Mrs. Reynolds, when the early product melted our servers, you and your partner bought us fans and ordered pizza at midnight. I was 22. You made it feel possible to stay." He moves on before I can answer. Behind him, a woman with kind eyes, one of the early engineers we almost lost 3 times, claps my shoulder and says only, "Ma'am." The way women say it when they mean thank you, and I didn't know how to tell you. Jennifer hears both. She's good with faces and terrible with context. Her smile wobbles, then tightens. I feel more than see the heat of her calculation. A minute later, another guest steps forward. Daniel Foster, operations 25 years. The kind of leader who makes payroll feel like a promise kept. We haven't seen each other since I stepped back. He bows his head an inch. Barbara. Daniel, I say. And the name tastes like 2 decades of Friday afternoons, where he handed me bad news like a professional, and I handed him authority like respect. Jennifer slides in a fraction, trying to be helpful. Daniel keeps the trains running while we modernize, she says to Rebecca. Light, easy, a line she's practiced. Daniel's mouth tightens, but he lets it pass. Rebecca's gaze cuts sideways, barely, and a small muscle in her jaw changes its mind. Maggie's eyebrows climb a 1/4 inch. If you didn't know us, you'd miss all of it. 3 more hands. Then Rebecca steps forward with the cool of a woman who prefers to change rooms, not raise voices. Barbara, she says quietly, may I borrow you and Jennifer for a moment? A hotel coordinator materializes, as if this building keeps spare rooms in its pockets. We're steered into a side salon with velvet chairs and a painting of ships that never knew a headwind. Maggie appears without being asked. She closes the door. The party sound drops to a hum like distant machinery. Rebecca doesn't sit. She stands with her cup, and that measured tilt of the head that means we've moved from celebration to business. And business is not the enemy of celebration if you do it right. Jennifer, she says gently, I'm going to ask 3 questions. If the answers are yes, we'll have one kind of conversation. If they're no, we'll have another. Understood? Jennifer's throat moves. Yes, ma'am. 1, Rebecca says. Did you tell your fiancé's mother, before you knew who she was, that older employees at Nexora were dead weight you'd be better off replacing? Jennifer glances at me like a student checking whether the test is open book. I use those words, she says. Out of context. Words are the context, Rebecca says. 2, after I asked you to hold your pitch, did you attempt to line up allies last night for a post-wedding push, to pilot cuts anyway? Jennifer freezes. There are no good exits. I floated the idea, she says, informally, to gauge support. And 3, Rebecca says, voice still as water in a glass. Have you, at any point this quarter, taken public credit for wins your team delivered without acknowledging them by name? Jennifer blinks twice. A bead of sweat appears like a confession at her hairline. I framed outcomes at the portfolio level, she says, discovering both the limits and the uses of euphemism. Rebecca nods once, the way a judge nods when the evidence has met the burden it needed to meet. Then we have the second kind of conversation, she says. Maggie. Maggie doesn't posture. She just looks at the woman the way you look at someone standing one step from a cliff with her eyes shut. Jennifer, she says. She never uses endearments lightly. You are talented. You are fast. And you don't know what you don't know. That combination wins quarters and loses companies. Jennifer opens her mouth, closes it. I can fix this, she says. And for the first time all day, it isn't bravado. It's the part of her that's actually useful. You can't fix it by talking, Rebecca says. You fix it by changing your ratios. Less I, more we. Fewer metaphors, more names. She inhales, and then does the thing that makes women like her dangerous, and sometimes necessary. Effective immediately. She says, You are terminated for cause. The words land. There is no echo. In the quiet, the thump you hear is a life hitting a wall. It didn't see because it was looking for a mirror. Jennifer sways like a woman remembering what gravity is. Her face drains. She nods as if her neck learned manners before her mouth. Understood, she says, voice gone to paper. Michael's laugh from the ballroom ghosts through the door. It's a sound I would walk barefoot over glass to protect. I step forward. Rebecca, I say, and she turns, because even now she understands hierarchy that isn't printed on an org chart. Not like this. She doesn't bristle. She respects privacy and timing. That's part of why she's still in that chair. Barbara, she says, I won't make a spectacle. You'll make a crater, I say, and you'll make it on my son's wedding day. Jennifer looks at me, shocked by the direction of the knife I'm taking away from her throat. She starts to speak and thinks better of it. Let me propose terms, I say. Then you decide. I count on the same boardroom habits that have saved and doomed women in equal measure. I count slowly. 1, I say. 90 days. Not as a reprieve. On probation. Pay cut to her base. Title stripped to individual contributor. No people reporting to her. She earns back trust or she doesn't. 2, restitution. The annual bonus she already pre-spent on that car. She sells it or takes a loss. The cash created funds a training stipend for 2 senior staff she called redundant. They will each choose a junior employee to mentor. Jennifer will coordinate, not lead. 3, names. In a meeting scheduled for next week, she will sit with every person over 50 she'd have cut and ask a stupid question. What do you know that I don't? She will write it down. She will present the answers to you with their names attached. If one name is missing, she fails. 4, credit. For the next 2 quarters, she doesn't speak about wins. without naming the 3 people most responsible, who aren't her. 5. I finish. Apology. To her team in writing and in person. Not for being young, for being careless with other people's work. And to Michael privately, for dragging her ambition into rooms where love should be louder. Maggie's mouth does the not smile that means she's remembering why we worked. Rebecca studies me the way women study blueprints when they know the materials and the margin for error. That's indulgent, Rebecca says mildly, which is her way of saying it might work. It's mercy with receipts, I say. If she can't meet the terms, you haven't delayed anything. You've simply given a human being one chance to adapt on purpose. Rebecca looks at Jennifer. Can you live with those terms? Jennifer tries to nod and realizes nodding is a privilege you earn by meaning the thing you're agreeing to. Yes, she says. All of them? Say them back, Rebecca says. Jennifer does. She gets 2 wrong and corrects herself. She reaches apology and swallows. To Michael first, she says quietly. And in that edit, I hear a woman find the corner of herself worth keeping. Rebecca takes a breath I've heard in every room where decisions try to be worthy. Fine, she says. Probation terms as stated. I'll notify HR Monday. Consider yourself escorted off any decision path until then. Jennifer nods. Her body remembers how to stand. Her face learns a new language called listening. Maggie opens the door. Party air rushes in. Music, glass, the small thunder of 100 shoes on carpet. Rebecca stops at the threshold, turns to me. You held the blade, she says. It isn't praise. It's an observation. My husband taught me to. I say, be kind, not soft. She inclines her head and slips back to the ballroom, where leadership is 90% making a room calmer than it was when you entered it. Jennifer doesn't move. She's staring at the painting of ships and seeing something else entirely. A budget, a timeline, a life with different walls. Thank you, she says without looking at me. Don't thank me yet, I say. Earn it. I will, she says. And for the first time since I met her, I believe she might. Back through the servant door into the light. We rejoin the line. No one knows. That's the point. She takes her place beside my son, and when people come through, she lets them be larger in the space. She introduces Daniel to Rebecca by name, and leaves a beat for him to speak. He does. Rebecca listens. It is a small, visible course correction. It is also the only kind that lasts. Later, after the first dance that I nearly survive, and the second glass of wine I definitely earned. I ask for the microphone because mothers are allowed one speech, and I intend to spend it on what matters. I don't rant. I don't reference origin stories. I tell a short thing about the day Michael learned to ride a bike, how he fell, and I told him the difference between quitting and resting. I hope their house has more resting than quitting, I say, that they will be serious about their promises and light about furniture. I end with the line I wrote in the letter, and won't quote exactly here because it belongs to him. But the room hears kind, and not soft, and clinks its glasses like a benediction. When the applause fades, I feel a hand on my sleeve. Barbara, can I borrow Michael? Jennifer asks. She's pale in a way women are when they're about to do something that will change what they see in the mirror. They disappear for 10 minutes. When they return, his eyes are red in that good way. The way that means someone said some unguarded truth and put the furniture back where it belongs. She kisses his cheek. Then she crosses the room and kisses mine. Thank you, she says. For what? For staying the woman I tell people you are, she says, and goes to dance with a cousin who has too much energy and not enough rhythm. Maggie shoulders in with 2 tumblers of something brown and friendly. To mercy with receipts, she says. To partners who know when to ask for it, I say, and we drink to 30 years of making the same mistake at different speeds, and sometimes stopping in time. Near midnight, as the room shifts from choreography to relief, Jennifer approaches Rebecca and asks, in a voice just loud enough for the people who need to hear it, "May I make one final introduction?" She brings over 2 members of her team I've never met, says their names clearly, and lists their work before she lists her own. Rebecca smiles in a way that isn't a performance. That's not absolution. It's a beginning. When the band packs up and the last goodbyes have been upgraded to breakfast tomorrow, I walk the quiet hallway back to my room. In my pocket, the letter-shaped space is empty and right. The cufflinks are cool against my wrists. The painting in the side room will still be a painting in the morning. The ships will still have sails. The wind will still be a thing you cannot see and learn to account for. I lock the door and sit on the edge of the bed, listening to the hotel settle. There is more to do. Part of it mine. Most of it not. I've taught hard lessons with the back of my hand and watched people get good at flinching. Tonight I tried another method. We'll see if it sticks. I turn out the light. The day takes a long breath and lets it out. Tomorrow is for aftermath. Tonight is for being the mother of a man who chose his vows with clear eyes and expects the women around him to do the same. The morning after the wedding, the hotel smells like coffee, and Lily's doing their best to pretend they aren't tired. I find Michael at a corner table in the breakfast room, hair up, a sweater over the glow. He's reading my letter. He doesn't cry at the big lines. He cries where I wrote about the bike and the difference between quitting and resting. I sit when he reaches for my hand. We don't talk for a minute, which is a kind of talking. "I didn't know about the account," he says at last, touching the second envelope as if it might skitter away. "I mean, I knew you'd think ahead. But this is ballast," I say. "Not a leash. Use it never and I'll be thrilled. Use it when you must, and I'll be useful even when I'm not there." He nods. That grave little nod he learned at 12, when he decided to be a person worth trusting. "I'll leave it where it is," he says. "I like knowing it exists." We stand in the lobby and hug the long hug you give someone when the words are already accounted for. When he pulls back, he searches my face. Was it a bad night for her? "It was an honest one," I say. He exhales. "Good." I drive home through streets that look like they had confetti swept off them before the sun came up. I put the suit away when I get home. The cufflinks go in a small dish by the keys. The study is still missing the frames I carried to a drawer. I leave the wall blank. Truth doesn't need to be on display to remain true. The next day, Jennifer keeps her first term. She shows up early to her team's stand-up. Not at the head of the circle, but in it, a notebook in her hand instead of a slide deck. I hear this from Daniel, who still calls me Barbara, as if the years didn't give us titles we stopped needing. She said she was sorry. He tells me on the phone, not in the long way, in the right way. "How'd it land?" I ask. "Like a woman put down a mirror and picked up a mop," he says. "We'll see what she cleans. On day 5, she sells the car. I know because a photo lands on my phone, uncaptioned. The sleek thing on a lot with other sleek things. A smaller, older car parked in her driveway that looks like it expects to be useful instead of admired. She doesn't apologize for the symbol of it, and I don't scold her for the original. Symbols are easy to throw. They're harder to carry. She spends day 10 doing the things she feared most, meeting people she once called expendable. She sits with Sharon, the engineer, and asks the stupid question like she means it. What do you know that I don't? She writes down the answer by hand, which is another kind of apology. She sits with Thomas, the data analyst who can sniff out a bad regression like a sommelier, sniffs cork, and writes down "ask him first." She sits with the receptionist who has been returned to, ignored by, and quietly saved more projects than any metric will ever prove. She writes down a name and underlines it twice. Every Friday, A short report goes to Rebecca. Names, specifics, 1 lesson per conversation. No metaphors. I don't see them. They're not mine to see. Maggie does. And she texts me. Distillates. She's learning where the bodies are buried and who buried them for us when we ran out of shovels. On day 21, she meets with her former direct reports and does the piece that costs pride. She asks for their lists of the credits she failed to give. She reads. She doesn't defend. She circles 3 items and says she will correct them in Monday's all hands. And she does. She says names into a microphone the way a woman signs a payroll. A thing to get precisely right. We fall into a rhythm, the way families do when they aren't trying to earn a grade. Michael and Jennifer come to Sunday dinner once out of 3. The first time, she brings a pie from a bakery that doesn't need her to say its name, and she offers to fix the screen door that has complained for 2 summers. The second time, she brings nothing but herself, and that is better. She asks about the tomatoes, and I tell her the truth about watering. Attention, then patience, then attention again. She doesn't call me Mom. She calls me Barbara. I let her. Names are earned, not assigned. One evening, after dishes, and an argument about whether we are buying too many lemons for a household with 2 people, Michael steps onto the porch and leaves her in the kitchen with the tea. She's trying, he says, as if confessing to a soft crime. I see it, I say. And she's different with me. He adds, she makes space when I speak. She stops selling the second she recognizes fear on my face. He looks over his shoulder at the kitchen window, where her reflection leans toward the kettle like a student with a new instrument. I told her the account exists. She didn't ask how much. She said she was glad I had a door I could walk through if I needed it. That's growth, I say. Also survival, he smiles. So I married a woman who can learn? That's the best kind, I say, and swallow the part where I almost add, and the only kind with a chance. At the 30-day mark, Rebecca calls me, not because she owes me updates, but because we share a habit. We like to speak news into rooms where silence would turn into speculation. She's kept to the terms, she says. She's less of a broadcast, more of a signal. I don't reward promises. I reward patterns. But a month is better than a day. And the pilot, I ask. I killed the pilot before it was born, she says. We'll fund the stipend instead. Daniel chose 2 juniors. They chose their seniors. I told Jennifer her name will not be on the mentorship deck. She took it. That's new, I say. Good, she says. You held the blade for her, she says, echoing herself without trying to. For Michael, I say. There are smaller aftermaths, the ones that don't look like a plot point but accumulate into a life. Jennifer starts using people's names in the hallway before she asks them for something. She forwards an article and includes the line, "This reminded me of the fix you suggested." Not as flattery, but as a breadcrumb. She deletes 2 adjectives from every sentence she writes at work, which has the quiet effect of letting the nouns breathe. On day 42, she brings me a folder. I'm not asking you to read it, she says, holding it in both hands so I know she's asked someone else to read it and been told to bring it to me anyway. It's my notes from the over 50 conversations. Maggie said you might have a thought, or call me an idiot. The 2 aren't mutually exclusive, I say, but I take the folder. Inside are pages of square, careful handwriting. She isn't imitating mine. She's imitating respect. Patterns appear if you sit with them. The same 3 constraints surfacing in different clothes. The same 2 shortcuts people take when they think no one will notice. And how to notice without burning goodwill. 3 places where process exists because someone once quit rather than argue with the person who wrote it. At the end, a page titled, What I Didn't Know, I Didn't Know. 10 bullet points. The last one. Don't measure senior people by the speed of their mouth. Measure them by what gets calmer when they show up. I close the folder and pass it back. "What do you think this is worth to me?" she asks. "Your job? To the company? More than the money we would have saved by firing 2 people and then paying to rediscover why they mattered." She has learned metaphor in the right direction. I nod at the folder. "There's a deck in there somewhere. You won't present it. Daniel will," she says. "Already asked him. He said only if I sit in the back and shut up until someone calls on me. And I said, 'Yes, sir.'" She doesn't grin when she says it. She knows that would reduce the point. 90 days arrive the way seasons do. You notice the air has changed and only then check the calendar. Maggie and Rebecca ask me to sit in on the review, which I decline and then accept, because sometimes staying out of the room helps less than being a piece of furniture no one has to think about. We use Maggie's office because it holds conversations without leaking meaning into the hallway. Jennifer sits with the stillness of a woman who has rehearsed not her speech, but her breathing. Rebecca opens a folder and closes it without reading. She's been watching during the days that don't get minutes. "Probation ends today," she says. "Here are the options as I see them. 1. Termination, if the contrition was theater. 2. Reinstate title and scope, which would be reckless. 3. A new role, defined by the work you did these 90 days, instead of the work you did to get here." Jennifer doesn't fidget. 3, she says. "Please," Rebecca nods. "Coordinator of legacy knowledge and process resilience." She reads from the page. "It sounds like we invented it because we did. You'll report to Daniel. You'll carry no headcount for now. Your raises will track impact measured by other people's productivity, not by your personal deliverables." Jennifer absorbs the not flattery. She nods. "Yes, ma'am." "Also," Rebecca says, flicking her eyes at Maggie in a way that makes a joke without moving the air, "you'll run point on something we should have done 2 years ago, and didn't because we were busy congratulating ourselves. A map of who knows what and what happens if they stop knowing it. Succession planning," Jennifer says. "Respect planning," Maggie corrects. "Succession is for chairs. Respect is for people." Jennifer smiles at that like a woman marking a line worth carrying. "Yes, ma'am." "And the car?" Rebecca asks. Deadpan. "Gone," Jennifer says. "The stipend is funded." Rebecca closes the folder. "Then welcome back," she says. "On a shorter leash that you will learn how to lengthen by doing, not saying. After, in the hallway." Jennifer turns to me. "Thank you," she says. And when I raise a hand, she adds, "I know. Earn it." "You are," I say. And let the sentence be both encouragement and chore. We still have rough edges. She forgets herself in front of a whiteboard one Tuesday and says, "obvious," when she means unfamiliar. And 3 faces freeze the way faces do when old rooms get new drafts. She catches it. She backs up. "Sorry, not obvious," she says. "Teach me, small repair. Not flashy. Effective." Later, she stops by the person with the most frozen face and says, "I heard it. I'm trying to hear it sooner." On a quiet Thursday, Michael sits on my porch and tells me something that makes the letter in my drawer hum like a tuning fork. "She apologized again," he says. "Not about work. About telling me how to stand when photos make me nervous. She said, 'You looked handsome before anyone looked at you.'" He laughs. "I told her to write that down to use later." "Smart," I say. He nudges my shoulder. "So are you." We watch the light move down the street. Somewhere a neighbor's radio tries to be summer. I want to ask if he touched the account. I don't. Doors are to be walked through, not inspected. In the late fall, Nexora hosts an all-hands. I sit in the back row because I'm the kind of retired who prefers exit signs behind her. Daniel presents a slide titled, "What We Would Miss If We Lost You." There are names. There are processes that look boring until you imagine the week without them. Instead of applause, the room gets quieter, which is what you want. Jennifer sits at the side, unlit, head down, taking notes she won't show anyone. When questions begin, she waits. When she speaks, she says, "I learned this from Sharon," and gestures to a woman in the third row, who blushes and then takes over and explains the thing better than Jennifer was about to. Rebecca catches my eye once and doesn't smile. Her mouth says goodbye without moving. On my way out, a younger woman I don't know stops me near the elevators. "Were you one of the founders?" "I was one of the idiots in a garage," I say. She grins. "Thanks for the..." She looks for a word and finds a workmanlike one. "Structure." "It's yours now," I say. "Try not to burn it down for the thrill of building again." She laughs, surprised into honesty. "We do that. Everyone does," I say. "Just aim the fire at the right wood." At home, the house breathes around me. The bank sends me a bland letter confirming that a beneficiary designation has been filed correctly. I file it where it belongs. On Sunday, Michael and Jennifer arrive with a paper bag of lemons that would win our argument on abundance if I were keeping score. We eat roast chicken and drink wine that knows its job, and we talk about nothing in particular until the particular thing arrives without being summoned. "I'm not there yet," Jennifer says, picking at a seam in the table runner she thinks I don't see. But I think I know where there is now. It's quieter than I expected. "Good places usually are," I say. She nods. She doesn't look at me when she says it, which is how you know a sentence is not a performance. "Thank you for being kind, but not soft." "That line belongs to your father-in-law," I say. "I borrowed it with interest." She looks up. "I'll pay it back," she says. "Pay it forward," I say. "I'm retired." After they leave, I stand in the doorway while the night settles. Tomorrow will be garden work and a call with Maggie and probably a trip to the hardware store for a screw I will forget is in my pocket until I do. Laundry. The account will sit like a quiet buoy under things that look still. The company will keep making its small, loud miracles. My son will live by the eyes he brought into this world, clear as water on a calm day. I turn off the light. The house remembers me, and I remember it. Mercy with receipts. Kind, not soft. The sort of luck a woman earns by staying long enough to be accused of having it.